Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Steve Mallory. This is, I think, the second video now. If those of you who don't know me, I'm a LPC, LADC in Ponca City, and I'm your friendly neighborhood hippie therapist. But anyway, since I am an LADC, I'm usually asked to give a little blurb on co-occurring competency, co-occurring disorders for the annual update each time. And so this year I'd like to talk a little bit more about the opioid epidemic that we find ourselves in. Unless you've been living in a cave or you're Rip Van Winkle and just awakened from a 20-year nap, you're well aware that America has an opioid epidemic and it's growing worse each and every day. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that, but I might mention this as we start. In case you haven't noticed, America is a drug-taking culture. We use drugs to speed ourselves up, to slow ourselves down, to make us happy, to make us feel nothing, to take the edge off, to provide an edge, to decrease stress, to lose weight, to make us smarter, to make us look younger, to make us feel younger, and drugs to get us off drugs. The whole country needs to go into rehab. Okay, that's my position today. So let's go back to talk about the opioid epidemic. This is the rapid increase of the use of prescription and non-prescription opioid drugs in the United States and Canada beginning in the 1990s and continuing throughout the first 2 decades of the 2000s. Now, opioids are a diverse class of moderately strong painkillers, including oxycodone, commonly sold under the trade names of OxyContin and Percocet, hydrocodone, Vicodin, and a very strong painkiller, fentanyl, which is synthesized to resemble opiates such as opium-derived morphine or heroin. The potency and availability of these substances, despite their high risk of addiction and overdose, has made them both popular for formal medical treatments and also as recreational drugs. Due to their sedative effects in the part of the brain which regulates breathing, the respiratory center of the medulla oblongata, opioids in high doses present the potential for respiratory depression and may cause respiratory failure and death. According to the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, overdose deaths, particularly those from prescription drugs and heroin, have reached epidemic levels in America. Nearly half of all opioid overdoses in 2016 involved prescription opioids. From 1999 to 2008, overdose drug rates, sales, and substance abuse treatment admissions related to opioid pain relievers all increased substantially. By 2015, there were more than 50,000 annual deaths from drug overdose, causing more deaths than either car accidents or guns. Drug overdoses have since become the leading cause of death of Americans under the age of 50. With 2/3 of those deaths from opioids. In 2016, the crisis decreased the overall life expectancy of Americans for the second consecutive year. Overall life expectancy fell from 78.7 to 78.6 years. Men were disproportionately more affected due to higher overdose rates. In 2016, over 64,000 Americans died from overdoses. Now, folks, that equates to 175 overdose deaths every single day. For each overdose that resulted in death, there were some 30 overdoses that were promptly treated and death was prevented. Now, that amounts to about 2 million overdoses per year. By way of comparison, that figure was 16,000 in 2010 and 4,000 in 1999. Now, many of the deaths come from the extremely potent opioid fentanyl, which is trafficked from Mexico and China, oftentimes through the mail. Now, fentanyl is a newer synthetic opioid painkiller that is 50 to 100 times more potent than morphine, and 30 to 50 times more potent than heroin, with only 2 milligrams becoming a lethal dose. Let me repeat that. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be a lethal dose. It is a pure, white, odorless, flavorless, with potency strong enough that police first responders helping overdose victims have themselves overdosed by simply touching or inhaling a small amount of fentanyl. As a result, the DEA has recommended that officers not do field drug tests if fentanyl is suspected, but instead collect and send samples to the laboratory for analysis, because exposure via inhalation or skin absorption can be deadly. Fentanyl-related deaths increased by 540% across the United States since 2015. This accounts for almost the whole increase in drug overdose deaths from 2015 to 2016. Fentanyl-laced heroin has become a big problem for major cities such as Philadelphia, Detroit, and Chicago. Its use has caused a spike in deaths among users of heroin and prescription painkillers, while becoming easier to obtain and to conceal. Some arrested or hospitalized users are surprised to find out that what they thought was heroin was actually fentanyl. As overdose deaths involving heroin have more than quadrupled since 2010, what was a slow stream of illicit fentanyl is now a flood, with the amount of the powerful drug seized by law enforcement increasing dramatically. Those taking fentanyl-laced heroin are more likely to overdose because they do not know they are ingesting the more powerful drug. The most high-profile death involving the accidental overdose of fentanyl is the consummate musician, performer, and songwriter Prince. Fentanyl has surpassed heroin as a killer in many locales. One of the truly terrifying things is that the pills are pressed and dyed to look like oxycodone. If you're using oxycodone and taking fentanyl not knowing it is fentanyl, that is an overdose waiting to happen. Each of these pills is a potential for overdose death. Now, according to psychiatrist Robert L. DuPont, who has been studying and treating opioid addictions for 50 years, the opioid problem isn't just about opioids. It's about opioids mixed with other drugs and alcohol. Taking a look at people dying from overdoses, the Florida Drug-Related Outcomes Surveillance and Tracking System looked at the toxicology reports for overdose deaths. They found that 95% of opioid overdoses involved other drugs as well. The average number of additional drugs was 2 to 4, with as many as 11 drugs present at the time of death. And to make matters worse, Dr. DuPont points out that the global illegal market is switching to purely synthetic drugs. It is used to be that the illegal drug market worked with drugs that were based on agricultural products, such as cocaine from the coca leaf and heroin from the opium poppy. Now the global illegal market is switching from agricultural products to purely synthesized synthetic drugs. That shift changes the whole dynamic of the epidemic. According to Dr. DuPont, they have mobile labs. It used to be there was just a handful of drugs. Now it's literally hundreds. Hundreds of new synthetic drugs are introduced into the market each year, usually on the darknet. So illegal drug users, including but not limited to opioid users, are able to buy more drugs at higher potency, at lower prices, with more convenient delivery than ever before. Now, lest you think that only rock stars, strung-out actors, and the homeless are the only ones overdosing on opiates, allow me to introduce you to a very successful young man closer to home, Austin Box. Now, Austin Box was a very successful middle linebacker for the OU Sooners who encountered many injuries during his career. He was in constant pain and continually rehabbing his injuries so he could make the team each year. No one, not even his parents, knew or had an indication that he had an addiction to painkillers until May 19th of 2011. On that fateful day, responding to a 911 call, paramedics found the Oklahoma linebacker unconscious and unresponsive in an El Reno, Oklahoma home. He was later flown to Mercy Hospital in Oklahoma City, where he was pronounced dead at the age of 22. An autopsy found the painkillers oxymorphone, morphine, hydrocodone, hydromorphone, oxycodone in Box's system, along with the anti-anxiety drug Xanax. Along with his teammates, Austin Box is credited with helping OU win the Big 12 championship and the Fiesta Bowl crown. He graduated OU the week before his overdose. I'd like to show a couple of videos regarding Austin Box.
South Reno 911.
Yeah, I need an ambulance to 1219 South Reno.
Okay, what's going on?
There's a guy who stayed with me last night, and he's not responding to me. And, he takes pain pills, and he's not responding to me.
Is he breathing?
I don't think so.
Okay, what is your first name?
My name's JT Cobble, C-O-B-B-L-E.
What's his name?
His name's Austin Box.
Okay. I need you to go check for a pulse for me.
Okay.
Okay. Go on his right side. Okay. Are you laying next to him? Or are you laying next to him? Okay. Do you feel him breathing at all? Can you put your hand in front of his face? Can you feel any air?
No.
No?
No.
Okay. Check for a pulse. He's not breathing?
He's not breathing.
Okay. Do you want to start CPR?
I don't know how.
You don't know how? Okay, I'm going to tell you how, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Hang on just a second.
Box. Austin.
Okay. I need you to place your hand on his forehead and your other hand under his neck, and then tilt his head back.
What now?
Place your hand on his forehead, your left hand. Which side are you on?
I'm on his right side.
You're on his right side? Okay,
Yeah.
Place your left hand on his forehead and your other hand under his neck and tilt his head back. Okay, put your ear next to his mouth, and can you hear or feel any breathing?
No.
Okay. Do you want to start mouth to mouth, or do you want to do compressions?
I do compressions.
Compressions, okay. What I need you to do is place the heel of your hand on the breastbone in the center of his chest between his nipples, okay? And then place your other hand on top of that, and then firmly press 2 inches only with the heel of your lower hand touching his chest. And I want you to pump his chest 30 times. And I want you to count out loud with me.
Struggling here. I'm a little freaked out.
Oh, that's all right. I'm here to help.
Where?
Okay. Are you doing CPR? Are you doing compressions? Are you counting? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
4,
5,
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, and here. 5, 6,
27, 28, 29. Okay, is the officer there, JT?
Yes.
I'm going to let you go. You did good, okay?
Okay.
Bye-bye.
At Austin Box's funeral, Sooner defensive coordinator Brent Venables said Box was living his dream of being an OU football player. Though Venables lost count of Box's numerous injuries, he said there was never an option of what the next stop was. Box was always going to live that dream. Though the dream ended tragically on May 19th, Box's legacy lives on. It does so in his teammates, his family and friends, and in a special bond between a father and a son, and some precious gifts left behind. Here's ESPN's Tom Rinaldi.
To my son, I've been writing these notes to you for years, and now you're about to play your last high school game. It's gone by so fast. You've been everything I thought you would be and more. The sky is the limit for you. Work your tail off like you always have and stay focused.
The letters began when the boy was in 7th grade. One before every football game he played. Written across a decade from a father to a son.
I've thought a lot about how much joy you've provided your mom and I all these years playing the game you love. Good luck tonight and go out a winner. Love, Daddy. I wanted him to have something to let him know his daddy was watching him, his daddy cared about him, his daddy loved him, that he was special, that he was going to be special.
Big, fast, and strong, Austin Box was perhaps the best football player ever to come from Enid, Oklahoma, with one goal from the time he started receiving those letters.
Oklahoma football was it. We were raised that way, and he was in love with OU from a very early age.
He always wanted to dress like an OU football player, and that was his dream.
Austin Box came up to make the hit.
The dream came with a cost. A punishing linebacker, Box faced injuries.
And a Sooner player shaken up. It's Austin Box.
To his knee, his elbow, his back. Each season with the Sooners. Each season, he returned.
Lights out, full throttle. He put aches and pain behind him. He loved the game more than he disliked the pain.
He would get frustrated by the injury, but he would never complain about the pain or the rehab. He just always fought to get back on the field.
On May 19th, 2 days after watching a St. Louis Cardinals game with his father, Box was found at a friend's house in El Reno, Oklahoma, unconscious and not breathing. His parents rushed to the hospital to face the unthinkable.
We watched them try to save his life and keep his heart beating, and we were there when they called his time of death. We were in the room with him, so we were there when they let him go, and we let him go.
You know, I wake up in the morning sometimes and I think, he's going to be there, he's going to be there. But I think that's when I saw him in the funeral home, that's when I really realized that my son's never coming back. I miss him so much.
Weeks later, the family found out Austin died from a lethal combination of painkillers.
I wish I knew why. I wish I knew the what ifs. What did I miss? What did I not see? There were no signs to me. There was nothing.
My wife and I beat ourselves up over it. Never saw a sign. He made a tragic mistake, and I honestly believe he had no earthly idea or appreciate the significance of what he did. And so I have guilt that maybe there was something that I didn't see.
From the start of this season, the Sooners have honored Box's memory in different ways. From the preservation of his locker, to placing his helmet on the practice field, to the most powerful, the wearing of his jersey, number 12, by a different defensive player every game this season.
12! 1, 2, 3, 12!
I can watch the number 12 and root for whoever's wearing it and really want that player to maybe do better than all the other defensive players, but whenever they've worn that jersey, they've honored Austin.
As the season has worn on, it is such a tribute because they all wear it with such pride.
That player wearing 12 and the importance and the recognition had nothing to do with Austin as a football player. Those people knew how he was, what he was, how they knew he cared about them.
There have been no letters to write this season, so Craig Box has read the old ones from the stack he found in his son's bedside table. A few lines or a few pages, Austin kept them all.
To me, they represent a father's love for his son and the son's.
Can see from the 911 call, had the caller known about administering Narcan or CPR, Austin Box may well have survived. Now at Edmond Fair, we already are well educated with administering first aid and CPR. In the months to come, we will become more educated about when and how to administer Narcan. And so, to get the ball rolling, we have information available in the form of this handy-dandy reference card that contains pertinent information about opioid overdoses and naloxone intervention. I'd just like to read a few things on this card. We have many copies of this card. It's regarding opioid overdose. What is an opioid overdose? Opioids are painkillers that affect certain areas of the brain that regulate breathing patterns. In taking high doses, opioids can cause breathing to slow or even stop. Combining opioids with alcohol and sedatives greatly increases the risk of overdose. Here are the symptoms on the card regarding opioid overdose. The person won't awaken when aroused. They exhibit bluish purple skin tones for lighter skinned people and grayish or ashen skin tones for darker skinned people. Their breathing is shallow, slow, erratic, possibly absent. You may hear a snore like gurgling or choking sounds, and their pupils are pinpoint. Regarding naloxone intervention, naloxone is an opioid medication used to reverse the effects of an opioid overdose. I believe it's called an opioid agonist. Naloxone is now available for individuals to carry and to administer in case of an emergency opioid overdose. In the event of an overdose emergency, call 911 and then give naloxone. If no reaction occurs in 3 minutes, give a second dose of naloxone. Do rescue breathing and chest compressions. Follow the 911 dispatcher instructions. After naloxone, stay with the person until help arrives. Note, naloxone wears off. A person who is overdosed may experience symptoms again, so seek emergency care. One thing I might want to point out is the caution of never mixing opioids or painkillers with alcohol, benzodiazepines, sleeping pills, or any other illicit substance. This is much of the way that the overdose occurs, is the mixture of drugs. Now, in just a minute, we're going to have a very short video on how to administer Narcan, but I wanted to show you what it looks like. We will have these at each of our med clinics. This is Narcan nasal spray. You open it up, and inside the cover, it shows you, it shows you everything to do, step by step, to administer Narcan, okay? And the video will go over that, but I wanted to show you what it looks like. Each box contains 2 doses of Narcan, okay? Just take them out of the package, then you'll put them up to the nose, and you'll squeeze them in just like a nasal inhaler. But we'll have a video to show you exactly that. This will be a very short video. But I want to say thank you for listening. See you later.
Narcan nasal spray is an emergency treatment for a known or suspected opioid overdose. The appropriate use of Narcan nasal spray can help you save a life. Narcan nasal spray is not a substitute for emergency medical care. As with any drug, you need to be aware of important safety information concerning its use. If you encounter someone who is unresponsive and you suspect an overdose, first shake their shoulders and shout their name.
Kevin.
Ask if he or she is okay.
Hey, can you hear me?
Check for signs of an overdose. Unresponsive to touch or voice. Breathing is slow, uneven, or has stopped. Snoring, gasping, or gurgling sounds. Fingernails or lips are blue or purple. Administer Narcan nasal spray as quickly as possible if someone is unresponsive and an opioid overdose is suspected. Even when in doubt, because prolonged respiratory depression may result in damage to the central nervous system or even death. Lay the person on their back to receive a dose of Narcan nasal spray. Remove Narcan nasal spray from the box. Peel back the tab with the circle to open it. Remove and review the printed quick start guide inside the package. Hold the Narcan nasal spray with your thumb on the bottom of the plunger and your first and middle fingers on either side of the nozzle. Do not press the plunger to test or prime the device. If you do, you will waste all or part of the dose of medication. Tilt the person's head back and provide support under the neck with your hand. Gently insert the tip of the nozzle into one nostril until your fingers on either side of the nozzle are against the person's nose. Press the plunger firmly to give the full dose of Narcan nasal spray. Remove the device from the nostril after giving the dose. After you have given this medication, seek emergency help right away. Narcan nasal spray is not a substitute for emergency medical care.
I'm with somebody who stopped breathing. I think they've had an overdose.
Move the person on their side after giving Narcan nasal spray. If possible, put their hands under their head and bend their upper leg forward. This helps prevent the person from rolling onto their stomach. This is known as the recovery position. Continue to watch the person closely. If they do not wake up or respond to your voice or touch, or if they do not seem to be breathing normally within 2 to 3 minutes, use a new Narcan nasal spray to give an additional dose in the other nostril.